Sophie Cunningham said the quiet part out loud. Damiris Dantas isn't in the building, and Rhyne Howard just buried 8 threes against Connecticut. Tonight's Indiana's dream test. Indiana Fever Daily, we've got a Commissioner's Cup game and even thinner rotation than we had yesterday, and a veteran already on the record about what's broken before tip.
The whole week pointed to this, and somehow the news got worse this morning. Dantas out, Cunningham speaking publicly, Howard still rolling. Yeah, I'm watching, but I'm not feeling great about it.
Indiana's 4-4, Atlanta's 6-2, and the cup points matter tonight. So no, this isn't abstract anymore. We're going to treat it like it counts. Andrew Parsad, writing in Sports Illustrated.
Indiana's defense has been suspect as of late, allowing 100 points to the Portland Fire and 90 to the Golden State Valkyries. They're allowing 89 points per game, tied for the second highest opponent scoring average in the league. That certainly has to be cleaned up if the Fever want to get back into the win column soon.
Sports Illustrated is framing this as Clark versus Reese, 6th meeting in the WNBA. Fine. But the actual problem walking into Gainbridge is Alicia Gray at 21.1 a night. She's scoring more than Clark, more than Kelsey Mitchell. And Indiana is tied for second worst in opponent points allowed at 89 per game.
And that's before you even get to Dantas being day-to-day for personal reasons. Indiana just got thinner up front against a dream team that already watched Rhyne Howard hang 36 on Connecticut. That's a front court problem, and we don't even have our center.
Sophie Cunningham went on record about it. Communication and unacceptable execution are the core failures. And she said that after the team meeting, not before. That's a veteran putting it on the record on the day of a Commissioner's Cup game, with Indiana already 2 games back of Atlanta. The matchup sells the ticket. Cunningham's quote is the real scouting report.
So when your own veteran leader is sounding the alarm in print before tip-off, that 2-hour meeting clearly didn't magically fix anything. Tonight we find out if the floor changed, or if it was just a long conversation.
Indianapolis Star, with Chloe Peterson.
Indianapolis. Indiana Fever Reserve Center Damiris Dantas is day-to-day while she deals with a personal issue, Coach Stephanie White said Wednesday. Dantas was not at the Fever's Tuesday or Wednesday practice this week, and her status is unknown at this time for Indiana's game against Atlanta on Thursday.
The Indy Star got the Dantas update this morning. Day-to-day, personal reasons, status unknown for tonight. That's the news we were building toward all week, and it only makes the front court uncertainty bigger.
And she hadn't even been in the rotation lately. It was coach's decision for the last 4 games. So now Indiana is losing a player who was already benched. Except this time, the absence matters differently because they can't just manufacture interior size late.
Against a dream team that just watched Rhyne Howard go for 36 on Connecticut, Indiana's defense was already the conversation. Taking away front court depth the night before a Commissioner's Cup game just turns the volume up. Sporting News with Rodney Knuppel.
The Indiana Fever knew there would be challenges this season. What they probably didn't expect was hearing one of their veteran leaders publicly call out the team's biggest weakness less than 10 games into the year. After consecutive losses dropped Indiana back to 500, Sophie Cunningham delivered a blunt assessment of what she believes is holding the Fever back. It wasn't about shooting, it wasn't about turnovers, and it wasn't about X's and O's.
Sophie Cunningham said it plainly to Rodney Knuppel at Sporting News. Not turnovers, not shot selection, not scheme. Toughness. That's a veteran leader breaking the internal silence in print before a Commissioner's Cup tip.
And that's the part that stings. She's the same person who said this team has the talent to be defensively dominant. That was her read at the start of the season. Now she's the one publicly filing the complaint after a 100-84 loss to Portland that wasn't even that close.
Damiris Dantas is day-to-day for personal reasons, per the Indy Star. So Indiana's front court walks into tonight against a 6-2 Atlanta team, even thinner than it was yesterday. Rhyne Howard just dropped 36 on Connecticut with 8 threes to open Commissioner's Cup play. So that's the stress test Cunningham was talking about.
The Cup record is separate from the regular season, and Indiana is already 4-4. So starting 0-1 in Commissioner's Cup while you're sitting at 500 is not a tiny footnote. It compounds fast. Okay, so the team meeting happened. Everybody said the right things. But what is actually broken on the floor right now? And is any of it fixable before they turn around and face Atlanta after Rhyne Howard just dropped 36?
Here's the honest answer. The loudest problem isn't scheme, it's communication. And that came straight from inside the locker room. Sophie Cunningham, after back-to-back losses to Golden State and Portland, publicly called communication the team's biggest weakness. Not shooting, not turnovers, not X's and O's, per Sporting News. That matters because she's a veteran voice saying the quiet part out loud. On the floor, the defensive breakdowns have been obvious. Per the Indy Star, the Fever have been giving up big runs in chunks. Portland built a 14-point lead after the first quarter and pushed it to 25 after 3 in that 100-84 blowout. Lexi Hull has also flagged the defensive issues as getting harder to ignore, saying the Fever have been exposed on that end. And the team meeting itself, reportedly nearly 2 hours with players and coaches together, was meant to rebuild trust and get everyone on the same page, with Cunningham saying, quote, "We built back all that." Communication is the one thing you can realistically fix the fastest because it doesn't take a roster move or a full schematic overhaul. It takes buy-in. And the meeting suggests that process has at least started.
But a 2-hour meeting fixing communication, doesn't that sound like it treats the symptom instead of whatever is actually causing the defensive breakdowns?
That's the real watch item heading into Atlanta. Whether the defensive rot came after the communication break, or whether the communication frayed because the defensive problems exposed deeper strategic disagreements that a long meeting can't fully solve. The Fever are 4-4, so there's still some margin, but a Howard-led Atlanta team is going to stress test the exact late clock and transition situations where miscommunication looks the worst. If Indiana shows up with tighter closeouts and fewer run-conceding quarters, the meeting bought something real. If the gaps pop back up, this gets a lot harder. This one's from CBS News.
Rhyne Howard put on a show Tuesday night, and the Atlanta Dream are off to a 1-0 start in the Commissioner's Cup. Howard set a season high with 36 points and knocked down 8 three-pointers, also a season high, as the Dream defeated the Connecticut Sun 91-75 at Gateway Center Arena. The Dream improved to 6-2 on the season while opening Commissioner's Cup play with a statement win.
So Indiana walks into Gainbridge tonight, and the scouting report writes itself. Rhyne Howard, 36 points, 8 threes, season highs on both against Connecticut 2 nights ago. Atlanta is 6-2. They're 1-0 in Commissioner's Cup play, and Indiana is 4-4 with Damiris Dantas listed day-to-day. That's the opponent. That's the rotation problem. Both are on the record.
8 threes on Connecticut, and Connecticut isn't exactly a soft defensive team. Sophie Cunningham went public this week and named communication as the core breakdown. So now the first live test of that meeting is against a player who just decided 19 three-point attempts were available.
Commissioner's Cup records run separate from the regular season. Indiana can't just file a loss tonight under "we'll get it back later." They'd be 0-1 in Cup play, while already 2 games back of Atlanta in the standings. The pressure is different, and Carl Smesko's team already has a Cup win banked. Got a Fever question, a story idea, or a correction for us? Send it to Indiana Fever Daily Fancast at lanternpodcast.com. We love hearing what you're tracking and what you want covered next. We've put links to all of today's stories in the show notes, so if something caught your ear, you can take a closer look there. That's Indiana Fever Daily Podcast for this Thursday, June 4th. Thanks for listening. This is a Lantern Podcast.